and welcome to another book review. First of all, if you're new here, I post new book reviews on both fiction and nonfiction books almost every single day. So if you like getting some reading inspiration or if you just like following book reviews, then feel free to stick around. Today I'm going to be reviewing the book The World at Night by Babak Tafreshi. This is a collection of photography of the night sky from Earth. So these are not a collection of photographies from, say, satellites in space, but from Earth. And this book called my name off the library shelf. I thought the cover was absolutely beautiful. I know we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but we all do. And this one just looked so beautiful, and paging through the photographs just seemed really, really interesting and cool. So I decided to take it home and give it a read, or more accurately, maybe a look through, as it's primarily photographs. Growing up, I grew up in an area that still has some light pollution. Not crazy, I could still see plenty of stars in my night sky. And sometime, I want to say when I was like early teens, my family acquired a telescope, which changed everything. I could see so much more with that telescope, and I thought it was great fun. The problem with the telescope was that it was easier to see things, or less hazy to see things, in the winter when it was naturally very freezing cold outside. I live in a cold climate, so I wanted to look through the telescope, but I would also spend time freezing in my backyard doing so. The telescope was great. The night sky was great. I've lived in a wide variety of places with a lot of light pollution where you couldn't see the stars overhead, places with a lot less light pollution, and I've had the opportunity to go to places that are dark sky preserves where you're able to see the night sky in its entirety. But the night sky is something that a lot of us don't get an opportunity to look at. Most people in the world live in cities or live in areas that are affected by light pollution, and when you have a lot of light pollution, you can't see the sky in all of its beauty, you can't see the bands of the Milky Way or other details. It's hidden by the light pollution. So unless you take intentional time to go out and find areas of the dark night sky, or if you happen to live in an area that has a lot less light pollution, or you've been able to visit a place with a lot less light pollution, even though the sky is above us every single day, more accurately, every single night, this is a world that we don't really see. Even though, again, it's above us every single night of our lives, it's something that we don't always look at, or not something that we're always exposed to. The photography in this book is kind of divided by settings. Sometimes the photographers, of which there are many contributors to this volume. Let me just go to the back. This is not a collection of photographs by just one photographer. This is multiple photographers, and they're going to all these different locations taking photographs. And they're divided into a variety of settings or loose topics. They talk about how we're still under the same sky that our ancestors were under. They talk about how these ancestral, or maybe ancestral is not the right word, ancient constructions, say Stonehenge, have connections to the night sky, and how we can photograph these regions with the sky almost in the same way that our ancestors would have seen it. They talk about World Heritage. So some photographers go to these World Heritage sites, that's what I was mentioning, where you can really feel that connection to your ancient ancestors, I guess, if you want to say it that way. Hidden universe, which is where they are showing all these things that most of us are not going to see. I don't want to say not going to see in our life, but on a day-to-day basis don't see. They have events that shook the world. These are key celestial events. So when we think about things like solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, meteor showers, those sort of events that are more noticeable, we have a whole section devoted to photographs on that. Fragile beauty of darkness, that's the part that talks about light pollution and the way that light pollution impacts the way that we view the sky. As mentioned before, when I lived closer to a city with a lot of light pollution, it was almost impossible to see anything beyond the moon, Venus, and a couple of the brightest stars in the sky. But when you go someplace like a dark sky preserve, you can see the band of the Milky Way, which is something that we don't see when we live in a city. So that light pollution that most of us are experiencing on a daily basis, they talk about that in chapter 5 of this book, as well as showing photographs with the evidence of light pollution, showing how little you can see in some of these cities. And finally, on a more positive note, they end on those dark sky refuges. So these are areas that have been set aside to have low light pollution and protected from light pollution, to give people like me who live in a city currently, and many other people in the world who live in cities, the ability to go and experience the night sky the way people in generations past have, in a way that we probably can't do so as fully in the cities or the areas that we live in due to that light pollution. This is above all just beautiful photography. There is some text, as you can see. Occasionally there will be some text introducing the context the photographs were taken in or the reasoning behind the photographs, as well as explaining if there's anything special that went on, any sort of editing, any sort of exposure time, and how long that exposure was. But it's not very academic or heavy. I don't think you need to really fully understand all the ins and outs of photography to appreciate the text and also to appreciate the photographs, but it's primarily just beautiful photography, and that's what I liked most. That's why I got this out of the library, and I wanted to appreciate the photography, and that I did. So I just wanted to show a couple of my favorite photographs. Now the light might reflect poorly. So the first one is on page 84 and 85. So if you do have a copy, this is the Aurora Borealis, those lights in the sky. Beautiful. This is something I've actually never had the opportunity to see myself. It's something that I've come close to seeing. I've heard, oh, there's a geomagnetic storm up here, or whatever they're called, or I live in an area that can get them, but it's not super common. There's still the potential and the possibility. Also, it's very like cloudy and dark and with low-hanging thick clouds for a lot of the winter season. So I feel like it's harder for me to view these things, but I do probably, I want to say in the next couple of years, make a more concerted effort to try to view some of these, because it's such a cool phenomenon that I have not seen, and I'm interested in seeing it. If you've seen the Aurora Borealis in real life, please let me know. Or the Aurora, is it Australis, the one in the southern hemisphere? Please let me know. It's something that's really interesting, and I hope to see it one day, and I love photography of it. It's just really pretty. Next is page 92. This is the sky in Japan over I think it's 500-year-old cherry tree. 500-year-old cherry tree. And I just thought, for some reason, this picture called to me. Of course, the night sky is beautiful. Of course, the cherry tree is beautiful, but it's interesting to think about what the world was like when this cherry tree was only 100 years old, but also thinking that the sky above this cherry tree at 100, 200, 300, 400, and now 500 years old has remained basically unchanged. And in 600 years, at the 600-year mark or in the 700-year mark, the sky above the cherry tree will likely still be very unchanged. So that was just an interesting moment in history that kind of shows the unchanging, more or less unchanging nature of the sky above us. Of course, the sky, space does change, but at a pace that's so slow that most humans in their lifetime, or even across many generations, experience very little change in what they can actually see. The next ones are page 116 to 119, if I remember correctly. Yes, these are eclipses. I've actually never experienced an eclipse. There was a partial eclipse when I was working one day at a store that I worked at, and of course they were not going to give us time to go outside in the parking lot to observe it, so I worked and checked my way right out through the eclipse, which I'm still a little upset about, as you can tell. I just think the photographs of this are very, very cool. Some of these are sequenced, or like they're set on top of each other, if that makes sense. The text in the book explains it much better than I'm explaining it, the photography terms, but eclipses, something again I really want to experience. These I thought were so cool. Again, there's kind of a reflection from the light, but if you have a book at home, this is pages 116 to 119. The eclipse, something I really want to experience. If you've experienced it, put your experience in the comments below. I love to hear it. And one day I hope to experience one. Next up is a conjunction. I'm pretty sure I've seen these before. A conjunction is when two bright objects in the sky appear to get very, very close and therefore appear almost as one object or just a very bright area of the sky. Something that I am pretty sure I intentionally saw a couple times when I was a kid. I feel like I have some memories around this, but clearly they're pretty hazy. And this is something that happens more frequently, or at least more available to the general public than, say, an eclipse, which might involve traveling. I just thought the photographs of the conjunctions were cool, so I wanted to share that section. And finally, my last photograph, these are the bands of the Milky Way. The top one, I'm trying to not get the light reflection in it, but it's not doing well. The top one is Crater Lake in the United States, and the bottom is, I think it's in Texas in the United States. New Mexico, Arizona, Organ Pipe Cactus, National Monument. Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument, Arizona, both in the United States. I just thought that, especially this first one, also this bottom one, just the stretching of the Milky Way band across these two. These are probably my favorite pictures in the whole book. I just love them. Page 208 and 209, absolutely the best. I would get these framed if I could. These are excellent. So those are a couple of my favorites. After reading this book, I think that this would be a great gift. If you have someone in your life who loves photography, someone, even a kid who likes photography, a kid who likes space, a kid who likes astronomy. There's also a cool section in the book that I honestly kind of skipped because it's not really suited for my personal hobbies. How to take nightscape photographs. I don't do photography, so I kind of just skimmed that section. But if you have a kid or an adult in your life who wants to get into nightscape photography, who likes astronomy, who likes good photography, this would be an excellent Christmas gift. I know we have Christmas coming up for a lot of us who do celebrate, so this would be a really cool gift to get. I would love to receive this. I would love to get a copy of this, and I think this is a really well put together and beautiful book that a lot of people would appreciate, even people who maybe aren't necessarily super into photography like I am. I'm not interested in learning how to take photographs, but I really love and appreciate the results, and I'm really thankful that Babak Tafreshi put this book together for me to enjoy, and that my public library had a copy for me to enjoy. I highly recommend getting this book and checking it out if anything I've said sounds interesting. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.